Geez, she's a little fresh this morning. All right, we are in Gawler. We're actually north of Adelaide by about 45 minutes, and I'm here at Barossa Off-road. We've had Ben featured on the show before because he and Nigel and the team actually fitted our Bush Company awning to the vehicle. Did a great job. Well, they also do van servicing, so we're here to get the van service. This is part one of a heap of things that'll be happening this week, and I'll bring you the timeline of everything we're doing so you can see how it unfolds. But basically, the van service is a huge part of our trek up the centre because we will be getting off the bitumen and we will be getting remote. And so I'll be able to have a chat, hopefully on camera, with Ben about what he would recommend for remote touring if you are traveling, whether that's single axle, twin axle, or a camper, it doesn't matter. Just some really great advice from an expert. And I'll also talk you through this service because it is a bit more of a major one for the van. It's about 45 different points that they have got to cover off. So we'll look at the logbook and hopefully bring you some of that as well. And then it'll be into all the other things in our checklist of what we've got to get done before we head off out there on the Explorer's Way. All right, it is 9 degrees this morning. It is super fresh. Summer is finally finished in South Australia, that's for sure. And Jasper and Katie are not with me this morning. We've thought, well, it's a pretty hard space and environment to try and keep Jasper entertained. And obviously a work zone is probably not ideal. So he's back there. We've dropped him and Katie at a friend's place so that he can still play in the backyard and have fun while I'm getting the work done. All right, let's go in and see the lads. And we'll hopefully bring you some really good advice that can help you too if you're preparing or you're planning on touring Oz.
So we're just greasing a bearing here today on Paul's Caravans. So this is standard roller bearing that's used in his. Now he's got quite large ones, so they've got two different sizes usually in most of them. This takes a bit of practice for people that haven't done this before. So I've got a lump of grease. I'll probably have to grab a bit more. I'll just grab a bit more and put it on the palm of my hand here. And then it's just a matter of pushing the grease through the rollers, and you'll see them come out like little sausages. And then once they've come through, you've greased that part of the bearing. So then it's just a matter of going right round the bearing and greasing them up. So this is really easy because it's a large bearing and you can see it quite easy. But once you get into the smaller bearings, it's a little bit more difficult.
How many of these you done in this career, mate?
Oh, I have no idea. Way too many. When I started as an apprentice mechanic, we were working on like old HQs and that kind of thing, which they needed to have it done, was it every 20,000 Ks? Okay. So, yeah, lots and lots. So when you're doing 2 services a day, you're doing wheel bearings on two services every day, you rack them up pretty quickly. So, and then you add trailers and whatever else to that, and yeah. It adds up. So I don't know, I haven't counted.
Thousands.
So yes, that's right. So then it's a matter of once you've got it full, pushing it in. I've already pre-greased these. So normally you'd run a whole heap of grease in the bottom of or in the center of it. So if I push it through, you'll be able to see there's a whole heap of grease in the middle. And then I normally smear the rest that I've got on my hand and pack it through the bearing just to give it that little bit extra. So that's greasing a bearing. So then as part of this wheel hub service, we also are doing seals. Now the seals have this little spring in there holding the rubber out, and what can happen is when you slide these on and off, especially if you've got a drum, a lot heavier, you can pop that spring out, it doesn't seal. So I normally always pack the back of the seal with grease to make sure that stays in there, and then if the bearing needs more grease at some stage, because the bearing grease gets warm, it can then move around within the bearing hub as well. So, and then you've got that little bit extra grease if that bearing gets too warm. So,
right.
Yep, and then it's just a matter of tapping that one in. So I normally like to use the steel seal rather than the rubber ones because they usually go in, hold in tighter. So that's usually if you can get the steel backed ones, go for that. And there you go, that's banged in. So we'll do this next one because I've got this one ready to go because we've got to flip him over anyway. So same again. It is a bit of a messy job.
Mate, well, as the apprentice, is that why you had to do this job?
Yep, you got to learn to get your hands dirty. We didn't use gloves either, so if you did a wheel bearing service before lunch and you had sandwiches, you got to see exactly where your fingers were on that sandwich. And usually if you didn't do wheel bearings for a few days, that wheel bearing grease would come out on everything because it'd come out your pores. So, yeah, so if you had any light colours around the house, you would soon see where I had been touching them, yes.
Yeah.
So,
how'd that go for your relationships over time, mate?
Well, luckily I was just home with mum and dad most of the time, so so mum got used to that. So, yeah, and of course, grease on your clothes, whatever else. So, but that's part of being a mechanic.
So we were just looking at the inner bearing there.
So that's the inner bearing, yep, and then we'll flip him over, and then we got the outer bearing lives up in here. So I've got a bundle of grease that I've just got to spread around inside of here. And this is excess for the bearing to grab as well. I've already pre-done these. As you can see, there's all these little lumps in it. That's where it's all snaked through. It's just a matter of sticking it in. I normally put a little bit around here just to push that bearing grease back through because you can never have too much grease. You're better off having too much than not enough.
Okay.
Because if you don't have enough, the chance of the bearing overheating is very high. Do the same in this one.
It's a good idea, I guess, each time you're stopping, just to put your hand down onto the hub, just to see if the temperatures.
Well, that will tell you a few things. I mean, most caravans and that have brakes, so that will tell you whether you've got a sticking brake, or your wheel bearings are starting to fail, or they're over tight or too loose, or that kind of thing. So it gives you a bit of an idea. They should be all the same to touch. Yeah.
It's obviously still a bit of heat in there, but not hot.
Not hot, that's right. Okay. To give you an idea, if you had, say, a Land Cruiser, like you do, the wheels on the trailer should be the same to touch as the front wheels of your car.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they're using the same amount of braking and it's got the same grease in it, where the back wheels of your car don't have greasable hubs, I don't think, on yours. Yours are lubricated by oil, so it's going to be a different temperature.
Right.
Yeah, so that gives you a bit of an idea. Right, so we're ready to go with those. And then we've got our washers here, which the nut goes against to hold all that together. This one's a bit dirty, I might have to wipe them off the rag. And then it's just a matter of sliding them on, doing them up.
Great, thank you,
right.
mate.
No worries.
Great lesson. You're made for YouTube.
Made for YouTube. Thanks, guys.
Are they marked up for rear, left and front left? Or...
No, it doesn't matter with these.
Okay.
They're all the same. And because I put new bearings in it didn't matter.
Great.
Yeah. When you do up your wheel bearings, I'm using a socket to do this. Normally you can use a shifter or something like that, but you don't want to have something with too much leverage, because all you're really doing is getting tension on it. You're not over tightening it, because if you over tighten it, the bearings are going to crush together too much. It's going to create heat, and then the bearings are going to wear out. And you don't want to have them too loose, because otherwise the bearings are too far apart, you get slop in the wheel, and then you get the same issue. So you really want to have that little bit of preload, so it's pretty much like that. Not much preload at all, and yeah, done. But then you want to line it up with your holes. So we got one hole going here and one hole going there, and it's not quite lined up, so we'll just pull it back a little bit.
For that split pin?
Yeah, for that split pin to go through.
Right.
So you're better off going backwards than going forwards, so you can get our split pin through there. Whereas our other hole, which is off to the side here, we'd have to move that quite a fair way. We're better off just going straight down in there.
Got it.
Yeah. So, and it should be firm, but not too tight to spin over. So, we'll do the same with this one. You gotta make sure your surfaces are clean too when you slide them on. The last thing you want is a whole heap of dirt in, especially cut your seal. You cut your seal, first waterway you go through that's up to here, fill your grease with water. Your grease all comes out the back seal, and then your wheel bearings are shot as well. So very important. And it's just a matter of, and I'm always checking. You always spin it over to make sure the bearing's seated as well, and that's
what do you
perfect.
mean by seated? Is that the bearing settling into their
settling
position?
into its position? Because sometimes when you slide it on, the bearing may be here but not right up against its back position, and it might have got caught a little bit sideways. So when you go to do it up, you think, oh yep, I've done it up tight, but then once you get the wheel on, you give it a bit of movement, bang, it falls all the way in. So by spinning it over, if that bearing's crooked, it will make it spin if it's crooked, and then we'll get it back into its position.
Right,
so yeah, so that's one way to make sure that that's definitely in the right spot. And of course, when I did this one up, bang, is level with my hole here straight away. So in we go. There's a couple ways with the split pin too you can go. You can either bend it out and go round like that. I prefer to just bend it straight over the top and back in on itself, just like that. Chop that one off.
It's not necessary to bend them both over?
Don't have to bend them both over.
Would it
No.
matter if you did?
No, it doesn't matter if you did. The only other way you could do it is you chop it a little bit longer on this side and bend that side over, but all it's really doing is holding that pin to stop the nut from turning. Okay. As long as that pin stays in its position, that's all it really needs.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it doesn't really matter whether you go up around or over like that. I just find it easier like that. You've got that little bit more space in the cap where you don't have usually around here, because the cap comes in quite tight around the side here. As you can see, the cap's quite deep, and then like this one here, you can see where the grease has been, and that's right and will be nearly on the edge of the nut. Yeah. So I normally just bend it straight over like that. And then that makes it easier for if you do have an issue, you can then bend it back over and pull it out. Makes it easier like that. So,
awesome.
All right. So just clean this edge up here and pop the cap back on. I've already cut the tab off here. And sometimes you can just pop it on with a cap, but I don't like to dent the cap too much, so I've made a tool to allow me to just bang on the outside.
I guess you could use a flathead sort of screwdriver.
You can, yep. You just want something blunt, pretty much,
okay,
so that it doesn't cut into it. And then it's just a matter of putting it back together the same way you pulled it apart. So next is disc on, and then we go disc caliper. So get that disc sitting in its position, it's home. Grab the disc caliper here. Now this is a bit tricky. The brakes keep falling out, it's always a bit of fun.
You can really see the condition of the brake pads there too, which is great.
Yes, that's right, yeah. So we've still got a fair bit of meat left on these, so we'll be able to get around for a bit longer.
Good news.
Yep, that's all right. Should be able to get the next service you might need to get these pads done. Depends what driving you're doing. So
well, that's it. That's right.
If you're doing a lot more hilly work, you're going to go through your brakes more than what you are if you're doing flat road, flat nullarbor run. So
sure, certainly. You know, getting down to Tassie, there's some almighty brake burners down there.
Oh yes, definitely.
So, but getting out back now, not so much.
Yeah, that's where you use your gears a bit more too.
Right.
Get your vehicle to do some of the engine braking for you like a truck does, so then you're not working your brakes so hard. All right, do these caliper bolts up.
Only two of those, top and bottom?
Yep, two of those, top and bottom. So, calipers are easy. easier are drums. So drum brake, you just slide over the brakes that are inside the drum and you're pretty much almost done. So there is an adjustment you can do, but if you've had it serviced or whatever beforehand, so if you were doing this in the bush and you've had a wheel bearing failure, it would just be a matter of sliding the drum off. Brakes wouldn't need to be adjusted because they wouldn't have been affected, doing your wheel bearings and then sliding it all back together again. And another good thing for when you're in the bush too is having a grease set of wheel bearings with you, or at least one set.
Okay.
One set of like 4, so you can do one wheel, because you might have one wheel fail, the rest of them are fine. At least you can then put another set on, limp it back to wherever you need, and you can then get someone to make sure that everything's all hunky-dory with it. So
okay.
It's definitely something to do, especially like if you're doing Gib River or something like that where you don't see anyone for, you know, a day or two. Or even if you're out even more remote than that, it's always good to have a set of wheel bearings with you. So
Pre-greased.
yeah,
So
pre-greased, ready to go. So all you have to do is just pull it apart, put your wheel bearings in there, put it back together again. Hopefully you don't have any other damage, and then you can at least, if you do have a little bit of damage, you can still limp yourself back to a place of repair and get the whole job done properly. So
fantastic.
yeah, so that's doing this part of the maintenance. I mean, we've also got greasing and to do, but another thing to do while you've got your wheel off is make sure that you don't have something else falling off suspension wise too while you're here, because the last thing you want is, yes, you've had a wheel bearing failure, but oh, my shocker's about to fall off too. Like, it's always good just to have that little bit of a brief look around just to be sure. So
Fantastic.
yeah, all right,
Thank you very much.
no problem. So now we've got all the tyres on. I've rattled up the bolts to a certain tension, and then I'm doing the last bit with the tension wrench. Then I know exactly that I've got all my wheel nuts as tight as they need to be. I know that when I go to undo them, it hasn't stretched the thread, and that can cause them to snap the stud or whatever. So this is probably one of the most critical parts of tyre management and making sure, and wheel bearing checking and everything like that. So you want to make sure that your drums aren't hot, which these are really good because you can check by just putting your fingers through and touching the disc or the drum, which will then give you a bit of an indication of where your wheel bearings are at, because these CSA wheels have got a cover over the hub, so you can't actually touch that. Oh, I think you can pop the centre caps out of these, can you, John? Can you?
I'm not sure. I've normally taken
Oh, yeah, you can. You can. You can pop them out. There you go.
There you go.
So you can pop the covers off. But if you're doing wheel tensions, especially on these CSA wheels, you can't usually get your socket in past it.
Yeah, I always take them
So
off.
take them off. Making sure you got the right tension is a key, because worst thing you want to do is have a stripped thread and you can't get the wheel off. And it's very annoying to try and chisel that out without wrecking your rim. That's one of the hardest parts. So yeah, so then it's just a matter of making sure you can go. I usually go around in a few different orders so that you know that you're pulling the tyre up tight. See, that one's not tight, but I still did these with the rattle gun. So yeah, so just a matter of doing them up. You can do them up with a rattle gun, but not over tightening them. Get your wheels back on the ground and then just manually going around it and checking your tension. So,
And the pressure again on these?
it's 90 foot-pounds, so, or 120 newton meters. So most vans are different, but most cars and everything are all about 90 foot-pound of pressure anyway. And what you'll find is your car or whatever, if you're using the car instrument, is only certain length, so you can only get a certain amount of physical tension on it.
Okay.
So that will stop you from over tightening it, unless you're getting it and then jumping on it to make it tighter, which is not a good idea anyway. Use your tools wisely, or get a tension wrench and then know exactly you've done the right thing. So, all right.
Great, thanks, Nigel. What a legend,
Yeah, absolutely. How good is Nigel on camera?
mate. Sure, the phone's ringing. Hollywood's calling. No, fantastic. I tell you what, you don't know what you don't know, but I feel confident that I could change bearings on the side of the road. I wouldn't want to.
Yeah, hopefully we don't ever have to. But, I mean, especially if the dirty work's all been done for you.
Oh, yeah, pre-packed. Very good.
That's a messy job.
And it's a great tip.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Now, of course, that was just one part of a 46-point major logbook service.
Ooh.
So that is 30,000 kilometres, in our case actually 35,000 kilometres, or 3 years service. Now, we've only been in the van less than 2 years, almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years. God, time flies, doesn't it?
It does. So, I mean, it's whichever comes first, and that just goes to show you Australia is so vast. Our great southern land, you can clock up kilometres just like that. So you've got to stay on top of this servicing. And it doesn't matter actually whether it's warranty related or you're trying to make sure you're staying in warranty, or it's an older van or a new van. This, I guess, prevention by that maintenance schedule really can save you a major problem out on the road, I think.
Well, it's like you're dragging your house along the road, so things are going to move and shift, and it's just worth checking.
It's actually a good point. Okay, so something that the guy said to us was, look, you really should have done this at least 2, maybe 4 weeks before you set off on adventure like this, because
oops.
Yeah, really, that way you're giving your vehicles a chance to settle in and to see if there's anything else that you needed or we may have missed, or, so leaving it till the last minute, not the best idea.
Okay, noted for next time.
Yes, okay, so don't be like us, all right?
No, well, especially too when you're not from a particular area and you've got to find reputable service providers, or even find time to be able to fit in with their pre-bookings. And
yeah, everything in the top end down the west coast. When we travelled there, we were 6 weeks out, so we had to keep ringing miles ahead to try and get in to someone in 6 weeks' time. So that's how far they are booked in advance, particularly during these winter months or these grey nomad peak periods when all of us are travelling north.
Yeah.
All right.
Greying.
Yes.
I'll have you know.
That's all right. Just a bit of hair colour, you'd be sweet. Okay, caravan alignment, the wheel alignment is definitely on the list. That is being done by a third-party partner of Barossa Off-road. So that's booked in. They've shifted stuff around to make that happen.
Amazing, thank you.
Thank you. The 79 series is getting a major service as well early next week. So I'll bring you all the details around both of those. 160,000 kilometre service there.
That one's going to hurt, isn't it?
It'll be expensive, yeah. But that's right. But it's necessary to make sure that that's done as well. We're going to have a chat on camera with Ben, who's the owner of Barossa Off-road, because this guy's an expert as far as touring remotely in Australia, and particularly around caravans and servicing. So to find out what is the backup plan for a caravan, if you're serious about touring Australia remotely, that'll be a great chat.
Awesome. And he's such a good guy.
He is a good guy, and his wife Lisa, awesome people, and we can vouch for them. Now that we found what we're referring to, reputable, trusted, everyone gives these guys a good rap for good reason. Yeah. We're also, while we're in there, getting some new lighting installed on the 79. The beast has been unleashed. Thanks to Lightforce, we're going to be road testing this lighting system all the way up through the centre on our way to Darwin. So I can't wait to see that. Gee, they look good.
Oh, I know. I can't wait to see what it looks like on the front of the 79.
So we'll show you all the features of that, and we'll give it a good run and see how it goes. And I think that's it. We're also going to be talking next week about essential communications and those gadgets and devices that we think are a must, particularly the more remote you get in Oz.
Excellent.
Sounds good. That's going to be next week. I think that's it. We'll leave you with that. For now, we'll say look after yourself and do look after your family.
And happy trails, guys. See you then. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Please do like, subscribe and share our channel. And if you'd like more information on full-time RV travel and living, visit our website, thefeelgoodfamily.com. There you'll find loads of free resources, our weekly podcast, caravan cooking recipes, our monthly magazine articles and much more. We look forward to seeing you next week. Take care of yourself and your family, and happy trails.